Hello everybody and welcome back to the ASUS YouTube channel. This is JJ once again and we're bringing you another unboxing and overview on a motherboard. Specifically, we're going to be diving into our brand new Z77 motherboard, the P8 Z77-V Deluxe. So you can see here we've got pretty much all the key components of what comes included inside the box, including the accessories, the box, and the motherboard itself. And we're going to talk a little bit about everything, including not only the accessories that come included with the unit, some of the features and technologies that are noted on the box, as well as of course a breakdown and topology on the actual motherboard itself. So let's first go ahead and actually jump into the accessories that come included with this P8 Z77-V Deluxe. So starting off here from the very beginning, we've got the motherboard manual and user guide, as well as the support disk. So these two guys are of course critical in terms of getting everything correctly set up. This is going to detail how to get everything populated correctly, whether it's resident to the memory or to the CPU, as well as all those other specifics. And the support disk is specific for the software for the motherboard, such as AS Suite 2 and your drivers. But always make sure to reference support.asus.com for the latest versions. We've got our IO Shield. IO Shield is actually our Q Shield, which is a little bit higher end version of a standard IO Shield. If we take a look at the back, we can see that we have our padding on here. This actually serves two purposes. One is to reduce any type of electromagnetic interference coming in through the actual back plane of the motherboard itself, as well as to go ahead and actually make it softer and easier for your fingers to go ahead and depress on this once you get inside the chassis. Next up, we've got, count them, 3 SATA cables included. So each one of these actual packs has 2 cables included. So this is a total of 6 cables, with these 2 right here being SATA 6G and this being SATA 3G. So we have 4 SATA 6G and then we have 2 SATA 3G cables. We've got a SLI bridge. SLI bridge is included with the motherboard, as pretty much always. This board, of course, supports standard SLI and Crossfire, as well as quad SLI and quad Crossfire. Now keep in mind that we aren't including a Crossfire cable because pretty much all AMD GPUs come included with the Crossfire cable. We've got our fantastic Q connector. This makes installation for your front leads from your chassis a very easy process. Go ahead and run the power, the reset, the HD LED, power LED, all that stuff directly to this Q connector itself, and then you plug that in directly into the motherboard and you're good to go. There's also one there for the USB. We've got our actual module, which we'll go into a little bit further. This is specifically our Wi-Fi and Bluetooth module, which actually attaches to the back of the backplane on the motherboard, and this will enable both your Wi-Fi and your Bluetooth connectivity. We've got 2 antennas. These are the antennas that go ahead and enable your connectivity for both Bluetooth and for wireless. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at our box here. Here we've got the actual motherboard model name, P8 Z77-V Deluxe. Now for you guys that don't know, the actual -V here represents video, and that means that this motherboard comes equipped with integrated video. As one of the key actual features for the Z77 chipset is support for the Ivy Bridge or 3rd generation Core Series processor, which has a number of new multimedia functions as well as advanced graphics processing. So that's the reason why you see the V for integrated video display output. Now moving from there, you can see we've got a lot of different badges on here, and we're going to go into just a couple of these as far as some of the functionality that they provide to you. So first and foremost, we've actually got this guy right here, which is Dual Intelligent Processors 3. Now what does that really mean? It means a couple of things. One is that it's reinforcing our digital power design. This is now our 10th generation of motherboards featuring a digital power design implementation. And specifically, the Dual Intelligent Processors 3 is adding into the original power design implementation, which was just about controlling and providing power digitally for the CPU and the VRM assembly. Now, in previous generations, we went ahead and bumped that up to also powering and controlling the DRAM. And for this generation, we're also extending that to the actual iGPU, or the integrated graphics controller. So we pretty much are giving you all digital power control and power delivery for all the key components on the top side of the motherboard. So this is pretty much unprecedented. It shows our leadership in terms of giving you control and flexibility. Now, in addition to that, we of course have the Smart Digi Plus. That ties in with our TPU and EPU microprocessors on the motherboard, which of course give us some advantages when we're talking about advanced monitoring, overclocking, as well as helping to condition power efficiency and give us overall the most flexibility at tuning our board for efficiency or for overclocking. Now moving down here, you can see we've got a couple of key icons on the board as well. So we talked a little bit about the Smart Digi Plus in terms of allowing us to tweak the system more towards overclocking or tweaking it towards for better efficiency. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we actually look on the board as far as the TPU and EPU switches themselves. Now one cool one that we see here is SSD caching, which while the chipset natively supports SSD caching, we've also maintained it by adding on a secondary controller that enables this. And when we take a look at the board, we'll talk more as to why we've provided you 2 SSD casting solutions and the differences between the two. Here we've got Wi-Fi Go. Wi-Fi Go is a brand new implementation replacing our previous BT Go implementation that gives us both wireless as well as Bluetooth. And for the Deluxe, we step actually over from previously implemented 2.4 gigahertz to actually dual band, so giving us 2.4 and 5 gigahertz support. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the unique features that actually the Wi-Fi Go software suite has as well. And lastly, we've got Fan Expert 2, which is a complete redesign in terms of the software interface that controls the fan functionality within the operating system, as well as some tweaks that we've made to the firmware controller and the Super I/O controller for giving us more advanced auto calibration processes for both 3-pin and 4-pin fans on the motherboard. So with that, let's go ahead and just flip over in the box, take a look at any outstanding key points, and then from there we're going to jump over to the motherboard. Okay, moving to the inside of the flap here, we've got a couple of different items that we want to note. One of them is going to be our USB BIOS flashback, which is the easiest way to go ahead and either recover or update your UEFI BIOS, and we'll talk about that when we actually take a look at the backplane of the motherboard. As well as we've got our USB 3 boost, the ultimate way to go ahead and enhance both USB 2 and USB 3 performance on any one of your USB ports. The one cool addition that we've made for this generation is that we've extended USB 3 boost to not only our add-in controllers from AS Media, but to the native actual controllers that are offered by the chipset itself. So that's a really cool plus. In addition to that, we've also got iNetwork Control, which is a brand new form of packet priority software that works in conjunction with the native Intel LAN controller that we've put onto the motherboard. So with that, that covers a couple of things that we see here on the box. We're going to go ahead and jump over to the motherboard. So let's go ahead now take a look at the board. So we've got the star of the show here, the Deluxe motherboard, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at the topology and overall layout as well as the connectivity that we offer on the board. So this being a flagship motherboard, it pretty much presents overall the richest connectivity that we're going to offer normally in our channel lineup. Now there is an exception that this generation we're actually going to be coming out with a premium that's even more feature rich in terms of the connectivity and expansion options. But as a general rule of thumb, Deluxe is pretty much going to give you everything you're looking for in terms of input, output, and overall PCIe expansion. So with that noted, let's take a look actually at how things stack up. So from the top here, we can see we have our standard 8-pin CPU power connection. Moving over from there, we can see that we have a very advanced, robust heatsink and VRM assembly. So we have a full actual heat pipe assembly running from the actual VRM heatsinks out to a secondary heatsink, which is going to go ahead and extend the heat dissipation abilities of the VRM. So this is great because it helps us to go ahead and bring more normalized and more balanced temperatures, especially as we start to overclock the system. The Deluxe is really going to be outstanding in this regard, able to easily hit the peak of what the Ivy Bridge CPU is going to be able to offer in terms of 4.7, 4.8 plus frequencies. And that of course is definitely backed up by the 16-phase VRM that we have incorporated on the board. Now moving from there, we can see that we actually have 4 DIMM banks. As always, you can't see it because we haven't populated, but we have color coding, blue and black, to allow you to easily differentiate between channels. And you can see that you've got a maximum population support in normal situations of either 32 gigabytes or potentially if you were going to go ahead and utilize 8 gigabyte DIMMs, 32 gigs. Now in this situation, we can see here we've got the G.Skill Ripjaw Z's, 4 gigabytes. DIMMs by 4, so that's going to go ahead and give us 16 gigs. Now what's special here in terms of what we've done that you can't readily see is we have a brand new trace layout. Trace layout is the actual way that we trace the actual lines between the CPU socket and the actual DIMM banks themselves. This is critical to go ahead and helping you give enhanced performance scaling, overclockability, and stability as well as compatibility. This is one of the points that we've always prided ourselves on in terms of good design. And for this generation of motherboards, we've completely bucked the current trend, which is what's referred to as a daisy chain topology. We're using a brand new internally developed topology layout called T-topology, and this gives us the ability to go ahead and run very high frequencies, especially in fully loaded DIMM configurations. So with these Ripjaw Z2400s, that's not a problem on our boards, especially with this Deluxe. And keep in mind that actually we've been able to get even higher levels of performance with some of the higher end Ripjaw Zs that might be coming to the market, such as 4DIMM 2800. So really impressive in terms of that T-topology trace layout. So moving over from there, let's go ahead and take a look here at the left-hand side of the motherboard and some of the connections that we have available to us. So first off, we've got this TPU switch right here. TPU switch is an easy way to go ahead and access the actual TPU controller on the motherboard that will interface with the CPU and give us a quick and easy low-level overclock. So all you would have to do when first setting up the system is flip that switch in the other direction. Let's say you were running like a 3770K, give you approximately about a 4.3 gigahertz overclock from that baseline of 3.7. So really easy to go ahead and give yourself a nice bump, which is the flip of the switch. Moving over, we've got a 4-pin PWM fan header. We'll go ahead and we'll count these as we go around here with 2 ones that we had on the top as well. The 2 headers at the top are ideally priced to go ahead and give you the most flexibility if you're considering a push and pull fan configuration on a large CPU cooler, or even if you're actually considering dual fans for a closed loop water cooling system like an Antec Cooler 920 or a Corsair H100. So moving down from here, we've got of course our standard 24-pin motherboard power connection. Below that, we've got another 4-pin PWM chassis fan header. We then have a front USB 3 header. So that's great for any of the chassis that are equipped with front USB 3, or if you've got one of those newer card readers that also support front USB 3. Now, just for you guys to be aware of, the front USB 3 port is powered by the Intel controller, not by an add-in controller. This is defined by Intel's specification layout. This is important because for this controller, we are enhancing its performance through our USB 3 boost technology. This allows us to go ahead and take the normal mode of operation from BOT, which is a lower performing legacy mode of operation, and change it into the SCSI protocol mode of operation, and even potentially for Windows 8 later on, actually UASP operation. So it's awesome that we're going to be able to go ahead and provide better performance in stock for this Intel front USB 3. Now moving down from there, we've got our standard 8 serial ATA ports. They're all right angles, you can see, so that we don't have any impact mechanical conflicts with, of course, any of the PCIe expansion. We've got the 2 SATA 6G ports here. We have the 4 SATA 3G ports here. These are all provided by the PCH. And then we've got 2 more SATA 6G ports on here that are provided by an add-in controller. Now, the Z77 chipset does support SSD caching just like the Z68 chipset. But one thing that we know for Deluxe Series users is a lot of you guys are interested in running a high-performance RAID, whether that's with mechanical hard drives or whether that's with SSDs. The disadvantage of that is that you're normally going to want to go ahead and connect those to your SATA 6G ports for the best performance because the PCH has the most bandwidth. But if you're going to go ahead and do that, then you kill your ability to go ahead and have SSD caching. What we've received in terms of feedback from you guys is that you guys still want to have that function. So you could go ahead and still put your SSDs on these 2 ports, get your high performance RAID for your operating system, but then go ahead and still attach a 2 terabyte hard drive here, and then let's say like a 60 gigabyte SSD onto the SSD caching port, and go ahead and accelerate and get much better read performance, as well as application launch performance for your storage array. So you get kind of the best of the both worlds. So that's part of the reason why we maintain the actual SSD caching implementation on the add-in controller. Moving down from there, we've got, of course, a whole bunch of connectivity that we see here on the bottom of the board. So we've got the front chassis connections, which we will utilize with our Q connector in terms of the power, reset, hard drive LED, and whatnot. Moving forward from there, we've got our debug LED. The debug LED is a very easy way in terms of referencing a quick diagnostic code that will let you know if there's an issue when your system is posting, such as maybe potentially memory compatibility issue, CPU initialization problems, VGA, an add-in card initialization problem, any number of different issues. Now you will have to visually take a look at this information in the manual to know what the debug code is. If you're looking for a little bit easier method, we do maintain an actual what's called QLED lighting system, where there are 4 LEDs that are sprinkled throughout the board. Take for instance, up here, there is one that's for the DRAM. This is a visual LED mechanism that will allow you to visually look at the motherboard and know if there's an issue in relation to that area. So we have an LED for the CPU, an LED for the memory, an LED for the graphics card, and then an LED for the boot device for your hard drive. So if you don't necessarily understand the debug code, you can always look at the QLED system. It's a quick way of finding out if you have a problem. Moving over from there, we've got another 4-pin chassis header for the fan connection. We have 2 front USB 2 ports. We have a clear CMOS. Now this connection right here is very special. This is an actual Thunderbolt header. What that means is, yes, you heard me right, Thunderbolt. Our motherboard here in terms of the Deluxe is fully compatible with actually Thunderbolt. What we're going to do is we're going to release a actual expansion Thunderbolt card, which would plug into a by4 PCIe slot, which all our motherboards in the channel series have been designated to support. You'd plug that into this slot, run a cable from that card to that header, and that would enable a Thunderbolt output. So if you're looking for the fastest level of performance in terms of external connectivity, even faster than SATA 6G eSATA, as well as USB 3, Thunderbolt's going to get it done for you, and we're going to be able to equip that on our Z77 base boards. So a very cool expansion option. Moving over from there, of course, we've got our classic reset and power buttons. We then have our EPU switch. EPU switch is a great and easy way to not affect performance, but go ahead and allow us to have a little bit lower operating temperatures and lower power consumption. What that switch will actually execute is a quick low-level undervolt. Won't affect your performance, just provides less voltage to the CPU so that we're consuming less power and producing a little bit lower idle as well as low temperatures when you're working on your system. And then lastly right here, we've got our front audio connection, which is pretty straightforward for the front audio header, HD audio header that's in the majority of all your chassis that are out there. So from the top here, in terms of our PCI connectivity, you can see that we've eliminated all legacy connections. There's no PCI. We've gone ahead and maintained everything being optimal for this generation and going forward. So from the top, we've got a by1 PCIe. Then we have a secondary physical by 16 PCIe, by1, physical by 16, by1, and physical by 16. Now keep in mind, because of the PCIe lanes that are provided from the CPU chipset, this lane is the only one that will run at full by 16. When you're utilizing 2, it will drop down to an 8x8 level of operation. Now with Ivy Bridge, you do have Gen 3 support though, so keep in mind that that's going to be Gen 3 operational bandwidth, which is significantly more than Gen 2 operational bandwidth. Now, one other item that is important on the Deluxe board is this little chip that's right here in the middle. This is a PLX chip. Now this is special because as all our Deluxe boards have so much in terms of the active connectivity that's available, whether it's SATA ports, front USB 3, multi-GPU ports, or a lot of connections on the back plane, you only have so many lanes. So what that chip does is actually multiplexes these lanes and allows us to drive more active devices at one time. So if you're the type of user that wants to be able to run, let's say, Crossfire and SLI, you want to be using front USB 3, add-in storage, and other devices on the back, the Deluxe is a really great option because normally if you didn't have this type of PLX implementation, some of these controllers on the motherboard are going to get disabled once you've gone ahead and populated a number of different expansion slots as well as a number of different controllers. So one of the other standout features on the Deluxe compared to, let's say, like our Pro or standard SKUs. So with covering now the PCIe slot layout, let's go ahead and lastly take a look at the actual back I/O on the board. Now that we've gone ahead and finished up all the physical layout on the front side of the board, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the back side of the motherboard, specifically the display output connectivity and the overall I/O input and output. So let's go ahead and start off from the top. We've got 4 USB 2 ports. These ports are actually noted with a sticker on their shielding, which lets you know that this is where you should be plugging in your keyboard or mouse. This is critical because when you first install your operating system, add-in controller ports like the USB 3 ports are not normally recognized, so normally your USB keyboard and your USB mouse would not function correctly, so make sure to keep that in mind. So once again, 4 USB 2 ports there at the top. Now moving down below, we've got 4 more additional ports, with the first 2 ports being red, and those are eSATA. Those are SATA 6G capable ports, non-powered. That means that you will have to provide power for your external eSATA based device. The fantastic thing though is that these are SATA 6G capable, really allowing for a very high level of performance, especially if you're interested in large volume backups or audio and video editing from an external array. So nice plus there. In addition to that, we've got 2 USB 3 boost ports. These are AS Media add-in controller ports, and they support both BOT, SCSI, and UASP modes of operation. If you're more interested in finding about what USB 3 Boost specifically is make sure to check out our USB 3 Boost video. But these ports definitely allow for a high level of performance when working with storage-based devices, especially flash-based devices like external SSDs, flash drives, and things along those lines. So moving down from there, we've got our display output connectivity and audio. So we have an optical output, and then we have HDMI and DisplayPort. The great thing about these outputs is that they work in conjunction with the new Ivy Bridge graphics processor. Now this allows for high grade performance in terms of the display output functionality, like 3D support, as well as normal high resolution support. Where normally in previous generations the controller was really best defined by 1080p resolutions, you now have the ability to drive higher resolutions than that through this integrated display output, and both carry audio, which is another nice plus. Now, in addition to this, our motherboard does come featured with Lucid's brand new virtual MVP software. The MVP software works with a feature that's called Hyperformance, as well as Virtual VSync. If you want to find out more about those, make sure to check out the videos that denote those two technologies. Moving down from there, we've got two more USB 3 boost ports. Okay, these are provided once again by the ASMedia add-on controller. And then from here, we have a Realtek Gigabit Ethernet port. This is based off of the 8111F controller. Moving down from there, we've got a USB BIOS flashback button. This button actually works with this port right below it. Now this is a USB 3 port that's natively provided by the Intel PCH, but it also serves as our USB BIOS flashback port. Great thing about this port is that it allows you to easily update the UEFI in the motherboard without any CPU, without any memory, and without any graphics card. All you have to have is just standby power. That means that 24 power and that 8-pin power plugged in, you go ahead and take your flash file, you plug the USB flash drive into that port, hold down that button for 3 seconds, you'll start to see that blinking and you're good to go. So a great way to go ahead and easily update your UEFI, or to go ahead and recover it in the event that maybe you have like a surge, spike, or sag, or maybe you overclock the board too hard. Going down from there, as I noted before, we've got the USB 3 port. Two of these, those are specifically provided by the Intel PCH, which currently under Windows 7 is not enabled for UASP support. We can still go ahead and extend the performance with our USB 3 boost software to either bot mode operation, which is normal, or the enhanced turbo mode of operation. And then lastly, we have our fantastic Intel native Gigabit Ethernet port. Now on top of that, not only are we getting better performance, better functionality, and overall lower CPU utilization because it's the Intel network controller, and we have also the robust power management as well as performance management software in the Intel ProSet, but we have a brand new piece of software that's called iNetwork Control. iNetwork Control will work with that port and allow us to adjust packet priority per any network application. So like say like your web browser, Internet Explorer, Chrome, Firefox, whatever it may be that you might be using, maybe download management software, torrent clients, you can go ahead and assign whichever one you want to receive priority to get the best performance out of that application that mirrors your usage at home. Lastly from there, we've of course got HD audio support powered by our Realtek 898 codec on board, which has been enhanced with the DTS Ultra 2 PC package, which gives us DTS Connect for hardware multi-channel encoding. So if you want to go ahead and take any source coming in from the PC like game engine, want to re-encode it to multi-channel audio digitally, you're good to go. As I noted, we pretty much covered all the integrated display connectivity as well as the overall input and output connectivity. But if you remember, as we noted in the accessories, there was an included Bluetooth and wireless module. So I'm going to go ahead and show you actually how that connects onto our motherboard at this point. So here we've actually got the module itself. This is the Bluetooth and wireless module. So this actually gives us 802.11n, 300 megabits dual band support. So both 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz support. Now there's actually a header that's here on the motherboard, if we take a look right here, that actually allows us to go ahead and make a connection. The great thing about this is that when you go ahead and install this module onto the actual motherboard, it will not impact any of the actual PCIe connectivity. So this is a great option. So I'm just going to quickly show you how this would actually mount onto the motherboard, and then from there actually show you how also the antennas would make their connection as well. So this are the actual two antennas that are supplied for the Bluetooth and for the actual 802.11n wireless connection. Okay, so we've gone ahead and removed our Wi-Fi Go module, which is both Bluetooth and wireless, from the actual accessory package, and we're going to go ahead and show you quickly how this installs actually onto the motherboard. Okay, so right over here, if we turn it sideways, we can see that there's a screw attached. I'm just going to go ahead and remove that screw quickly, set it down. See there that that screw hole is now exposed. We need to make sure that it's exposed. You can see here that we also have an actual socket interface connection. So we're going to go ahead and take this guy, rotate it around, and move over to our motherboard. From here, you can see right there that there's the actual pins. We go ahead and rest it in place and install this module. And from there, it's now been successfully installed. I'm going to go ahead and just take our screw, screw it in, and that's it. You're good to go. Now, the great advantage of our integrated module system is that it doesn't impact the PCIe connectivity. So in that way, you can go ahead and maintain Crossfire and SLI support and even maintain the breathing room in between those cards without impacting it by taking up the actual, let's say, add-in card for, let's say, Bluetooth or wireless connectivity. Now from there, we're going to go ahead and take our flexible antennas and go ahead and connect those guys. So you can see right here, that's our actual fitting connector. I'm going to go ahead and just that down, make a connection. Here it snaps in, connection, here it snaps in, and we're good to go. At that point, you've essentially gone ahead and enabled both Bluetooth and wireless connectivity on your deluxe motherboard. Now, one cool point that I will like to note about these actual antennas is that they have a magnetic base. So, let's say we go ahead and pull this guy as an example. It actually goes ahead and clicks to it, which is pretty cool. What that means is you can go ahead and take these actual antennas and mount them directly to, let's say, the top of your chassis, side of your chassis. Go ahead and make it very flexible at being able to mount them in an easy position so you can go ahead and get the best interference. Also, so it doesn't impact the actual back of your I/O, as sometimes other competitors that have wireless cables or antennas that go ahead and attach to the back might obstruct one of your actual I/O ports. So that overall helps us to go ahead and cover all the actual inputs, outputs, and connections that we have available on our deluxe motherboard in terms of the back panel I/O. Okay, so now that we've gone ahead and covered essentially the topology, all the PCIe layout, and the back I/O layout on our deluxe motherboard, we're going to go ahead and do a quick actual mechanical layout to give you guys a better perspective of how things lay out when we physically install some components on the board. This is new to our actual unboxing and overview, so we'd love to hear you guys' feedback, okay? And we can see right here that we have a high-performance tower heatsink that represents what you would normally have equipped on this type of solution, with this cooler being very capable of getting to the frequencies of what the board and the CPUs are available to in terms of, you know, that 4.6 plus range without any overall issues. Now you can see that doesn't impact our ability to go ahead and run these high-performance Ripjaw Z2400 kits on here without any issues. We're good to go. But if we were to go ahead and use even a higher performance tower heatsink, possibly with push and pull fan configurations and even more focused towards maybe silent operation, things might change up a bit, and we'll show you that in a little bit. So let's go ahead and actually move over, take a look at how things look on the bottom end of the board. So here at the bottom end of the board, you can see that we've got actual 560 Ti non-reference ASUS design graphics card. We have that in our primary by 16 slot. You can see right here, it does not impact any one of the serial ATA ports that are right angles, so we're good to go there. And we still go ahead and have additional spacing here for breathing room, and we've got our by 1 expansion that we're utilizing our Zonar Phoebus sound card in there for, and we still have the Thunderbolt expansion slot available to us. Now, if you were to go ahead and consider, let's say, SLI, or if this was a Crossfire consideration, you'd still be fine. What you would go ahead and do at that point is go ahead and put that secondary card right here. That would cover that by 1. We'd still want to keep this slot free because we'd want breathing room and we'd want our Thunderbolt expansion here. So we'd move this card over to our well-positioned and accessible by 1 slot. So that would still go ahead and allow us to have no issues with supporting an SLI or Crossfire configuration. So that gives you a little bit kind of a perspective in terms of the mechanical layout that we have relative to PCIe as well as to the heatsink. Now, as I noted, if you're considering even, let's say, a larger tower heatsink, let's take a look at see how that might impact things. So here we've got our fantastic Xigmatech Prime tower heatsink CPU cooler. So this is really focused at you guys that are looking for the highest level of performance on the air cooling side of the fence. We've got dual 140 millimeter fans here, so this is definitely capable of taking care of all the way up to the highest frequencies that Ivy Bridge can allow for. So 4.8 gigahertz, possibly even more than that. But one aspect that we do have to consider is that this does eat slightly into that first DIMM slot. With these Ripjaw Zs, while they do have an aggressive and lower profiling heatsink design, you're going to actually have to consider fully low profile modules. So in this situation, instead of maybe going with the Ripjaw Zs, if you were to go for a more advanced heatsink and fan assembly layout like this guy, you'd probably want to go with G.Skill's Aries set of memory. Those kits are actually low profile and would allow you to go ahead and install them without any issues so that you would be able to successfully clear the 140 millimeter fan. So that wraps up everything in regards to our unboxing and overview on our brand new P8 Z77-V Deluxe motherboard. So in terms of where this is sitting in terms of positioning, as I said, if you're looking for a high performance board with all your input connectivity in terms of USB 3, SATA 6G, multi-GPU support, dual NICs, and awesome fan connectivity, and that much more that the Lux is going to take care of you. So as always, if you guys have any questions, comments, feedback, we'd love for you to go ahead and drop them here at the page. Hit us up at Facebook or Twitter. And as always, if you guys really enjoy the content, please subscribe. We're always interested in getting this out to even more of you guys. So as always, thank you for watching.